Hey everybody, it's Stove Talk with Matt. I'll hit play on this video in about 1 minute, but there aren't too many pictures of what the final construction of the stove looks like. And one of the reasons we're going over this is anybody can do this. It's very, very simple design. This is a city in Siberia that can hit negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So they cleared out the old stove. This is the new stove being built under construction. And for them, this is about survival. I mean, it's literally, you might not make it through the winter if this doesn't draft right or they don't get this right. So when that's the case, I pay a lot of attention. You can use this type of design. You don't have to use the 1,000 bricks he did. They need something this big because of the severity of the winter. You can do a modified, and anybody can do this design as well. It's very, very simple. So just another 30 seconds on this before we start jumping around the video. This is the firebox here. Here's the door where the wood is loaded. It's under construction. They put a metal plate on top for cooking. So the fire burns here, comes up, hits the metal plate. You can boil water, cook eggs, whatever you want. There's this hole here, pretty big, good-sized hole. The flames, smoke, hot gases are dragged into what they call the wall. Now this is a gigantic wall, but there's a ceiling inside, right down the middle here. So the gases are dragged all the way down to the end here. They can't go up to the top because there's a ceiling. Down the end is a hole. So the gases are allowed to go up into the second chamber because of the hole. It's only 1 brick wide, and then come back all the way here, then up and out the chimney. Per the last video I did, this is also it's probably even a better example of the proper use of a damper. And anybody can do this. You don't need 1,000 bricks. You could do a modified version with 250 or 300 bricks and make your own little cooking and heating stove. Very simple to do. And again, I think that those in Siberia know what they're doing. Of course they do. So let me hit play on this, see where we are. Okay, I'll pause it where we need to. I'm going to show you a few things here. Let's see if I can get a better image of the door. I mean, there's not a lot of resources out there. They don't have Home Depot. Let's go dip down. Yeah, they don't. I mean, this is so remote. He's not using a grate or what the Russians call a blower or an ash pan with a grate where most Russian stoves, the air comes up to the wood from underneath an iron grate. But again, he made these bricks himself in the backyard. I'll show you a bit of that. He just cut a hole in the door for the air supply. And that is a pretty much, from my opinion, he knows more than I do, but that's a perfect amount of air for a stove like this. A wood stove, like an iron stove in the United States or Canada, just has 2 little tiny holes for air. You don't need as much air as you would think, but for something this big, this little rectangle here makes sense. Again, he's going to put an iron plate on top. And let's see let me go back, I guess, a bit to show you. Let's do this. Okay. There's the wood's loaded in here. He's putting the door in. Pretty big sized firebox. You can get 4 or 5 really big logs in here. And he's going to make a pretty big hole here, a square, for the gases and the flames and the hot gases to get into what they call the wall. The chimney goes up here, the wall goes down here. So let's continue. All right, and again, all the bricks are made by hand. I'll show you a little bit of that later. The ceiling, he didn't put the ceiling in yet. I'll show you when he does that. Gases, big, I think what he's doing here is correct from my experience. Sometimes the entranceway from the firebox into the rest of the stove is too small. It's just 1 or 2 bricks. I don't see any point to that. He's not messing around. He's got to have draft or, the family could freeze to death. So he's made a gigantic hole for a lot of hot gases to quickly and easily get into the rest of the stove. The idea is to wind the gases around so each brick heats up as equally or as equal as possible. So let me skip ahead here. There's the door, and this is a very big hole here. A lot of in the Russian stoves, they'll they'll make this wall much higher, so the gases have to go up high, and then they go over a little tiny lip, or not tiny, but maybe just 1 or 2 bricks into the rest of the stove. I like what he's doing here. He's just not messing around. The firebox is going to get extremely hot just because there's 4 or 5 logs burning in it. Why not let all that heat into the second part of the stove as quickly as possible? And again, if anybody's new, the idea behind these stoves is it's a thermal mass where everything warms up, and then it doesn't need to be burned again for 8 to 10 hours because all the bricks will hold heat and store heat and slowly release the heat back out into the home. But I think there's a part where, or I think he was responding to a commenter where he said, when it's negative 45 degrees outside, we have to burn it 4 times a day. I think if it's literally like 0 or 5 degrees Fahrenheit, they would only burn this thing twice a day. All those bricks are going to retain heat 8 to 10 hours. Hasn't put the ceiling on yet. Again, the gases are going to come down here, they're going to go up, and then they're going to go back. And he has to keep them from going up quickly by putting a ceiling on here, which I'll try to find in a moment. Again, huge area, just letting the flames come right in. I'm all for that. I really am. You can a lot of problems you can create if you don't let enough space for the gases and flames in the firebox to hit the rest of the stove pretty quickly and easily. People mess around with that. They try to get it too perfect. This guy can't afford to be too perfect. It's got to work, or his family dies. That kind of thing. All right, let me go back. There's the ceiling. He's starting to put the ceiling in. Now down here, it's just 1 full brick. But it's, these bricks that he's made are pretty big, probably close to 10 inches long. So 1 full brick, and then the gases will come back. Skipping around. There's the ceiling he's putting in. Now, a lot of stove makers in Russia, if they're trying to get it perfect, again, he can't mess around. They probably wouldn't just allow the gases to come up through the hole here and back. They would construct a kind of a mini chimney. Whoops, let me go back. They would construct a mini chimney at the end of the run where it would draw the hot gases from below. So the first bell or chamber, the way most this person isn't a real stove maker. He's just making it for his family so they can survive. The gases would come along, and they would want to rise. They'd kind of be high on the ceiling, but the brick chimney here would, from the way most stove makers would make it, would go all the way to the bottom, except for a 3 brick gap. So the gases would hit this basically chimney and be forced low, and then be allowed to come up through. I don't think he did that. He just can't mess around with that. So he's not going to have equal heating. His top 4 rows of bricks here. He's going to put a whole nother top on this. You'll see. I'm sure much hotter than the bottom. But again, there's only 2 months where it's kind of warm. I mean, he can't mess around. He has to err on the side of just making sure it works, and just maybe he has to add a little bit more wood. But I know a lot of Russian stove makers would take this chimney down to the bottom here and draw the gases down low and up. So the opening there to get into that second chamber is just 1 full brick, but they're big bricks. It's probably about 10. The regular size Russian brick for their stoves is a little bit bigger than a U.S. fire brick, which is 9 inches. They're about 10 inches. He's got the clean out area where I'll show you how he does that. So that's the firebox. You can see it's a pretty big, huge opening here to allow the flames and gases to go into the wall. That is huge compared to the way most Russian stove makers do it. But I'm all for this for a lot of reasons. People try to be too perfect and smoke their house out. Firebox is over here, and I'm not sure at this point he's put the cap in, or has he? I guess he has. There's the ceiling. And then this is where the gases would come back along the top and then up and out. Now this is open here. He's going to put in a metal damper. That slides open and closed. And when the metal is slid in, it extends the ceiling out, closes off the ceiling, so the gases are drawn all the way down to the end and then back up. To start the stove, when everything's cold, he's going to slide the metal out, per the last video we made about dampers. This is going to be open, and the firebox is over here. The flames are just going to come right up through this hole, up and out. He's going to need to warm his chimney up before he asks the gases to go all the way down, up and around. There's no way it would draw if he didn't first warm up his chimney. So we'll look at that. That's just a clean out door where you see it open. That's just, he's going to put a brick in there sticking out a little bit. He's just using some sort of homemade cement too, mud-based, clay-based, making his own clay. Most soil is, very clay-based with a bit of sand. And then he's going to plaster it too. So for the clean outdoors, he's just going to have a brick sticking out a little bit that he could break into once a year and clean everything out and then just put the brick back. And these bricks are brittle. They're not fired. He made them himself. Again, we'll look at that in a little bit. All right. Again, that ceiling would be about here. So the gases can't get up. They're drawn along the ceiling. Remember that one brick opening? They're allowed up and back. And then there was that brick opening in the front where he didn't put it in yet. He's going to slide that metal in. And to start the stove, that metal's going to be out. So here's the firebox. It's just going to burn, go in here. And when that metal, when it's slid out and that hole is here, that's just going to allow the gases to go right up directly. They're not going to be wound down and back and around. If without the ability to warm up this chimney, this part all the way up through his roof, there's no possible way this long thing would draft. He would smoke his entire house out. Once this part of the chimney going all the way up to his roof or through the roof gets hot, it creates, the warmth creates a natural aggressive draft. He slides the metal back, just like we looked at in the last video. And then the gases come in here, hit the metal, can't go anywhere. Only place they're going to want to be drawn all the way down and then all the way back because this is pulling, because he's preheated it for 5 or 10 minutes. So let's just finish this up, try to show you the key parts moving forward. Is that one more look at the firebox maybe? Now he hasn't put that metal plate on the firebox yet. And he hasn't even taken that up through the ceiling yet, through the roof. Which I'm not even sure that's even in this video. Let me skip forward. Okay, there's the firebox and the hole. Again, that's extremely big, but that's good. Let me skip part where he puts the damper in. Comes up in a bit. That's the hole he's making for the damper, but I'll show it to you when. Let me skip ahead. Oh, he's going to look at it. He'll show you the damper now as after he lights the fire. You see that this is the firebox here, but it comes out so much farther, all by design. The kids can put their boots up here, wet boots, wet clothing. You can sit along here to warm yourself. You can put your feet. He mentions things like this in the video. Well, it's all Russian translation. I wouldn't recommend any. The Russian translation through Google right now is really terrible. It doesn't come out right. You can put your feet up here. So it's all by design, this ledge. The comments in this video were, when you translate them, were strange. Usually the Russians are very appreciative of people that make these stove videos, and they're very congratulatory and very nice and kind. They were pretty brutal on this guy. I don't know why. I mean, somebody even got on him about cutting a hole in the door and sparks could come out. Well, this person probably makes the equivalent of $7,000 a year in the middle of Siberia. He made his own bricks. Let me show you that. I mean, if he's got to cut a hole in the door to survive, he's got to cut a hole in the door to survive. Probably, 3 parts clay, or he's got this soil that's as clay-based as he can, with 1 to 1 part sand. And, I watched this. I don't even think he has any sort of cement or any kind of binder. He's just drying them out, and he doesn't fire the bricks. He's just drying them out in the sun. But he can make bricks this easily. If a lot of bricks are going to crack and they're not going to last in the stove, and this guy's just going to, he could just repair it year to year. He can do what he needs to do to repair the stove. He made 1,000 bricks, and some of them are a little off, and some of them are cracked, and it's not going to hold up but big deal, right? He'll just replace the bricks he needs to at the end of the winter. No big deal. Do it all yourself. So if anybody wants to make this, 1/10 of what he did here, or 1/3, just Firebox, and then your thermal mass of bricks, your little wall or your mini walls off to the side. And you can do this at a much smaller scale. And even if it was just 5 or 6 bricks wide, you could wind the gases around a bit, and then they could go up out of your house. It's just a tried and true, design. Let me see if there's the damper. Let me go back. There it is. Okay, there's the metal plate. I know it's blurry. If I hit it again, it'll probably jump past it. So he just lit it. The metal plate is out. So the gases and flames is just immediately going through that hole, and then right up this hole, up and out. So he's warming his chimney. To get the gases to go all the way down to the end of the run and back, he needs to slide this metal plate forward. And then there's always all the Russian stoves have another damper at the top, 5 feet higher than where my cursor is. I'll talk about what that's for if I remember in a bit. But there's just, cooking plate. Just got a piece of metal. It's about survival. It's not even the cooking plates they normally use with the different rings. It just got a piece of metal to get through the winter. Just cut a hole in the door. Oh, let me go back a bit. All right, there's the damper. It's partially in at this point, and then this is just a clean out door. He put his brick out 2 inches so he knows. If he did use any sort of a binder here, it's probably just clay and sand, 3 parts clay or 3 parts dirt to 1 part sand. If he used any sort of a binder, a little lime or whatever, then he's not going to use that binder here. He's just going to fill this with clay and sand and dirt, so we can wedge this out, knock it out with a hammer once a year, get in here, clean it out the best he can, whatever he has access. Borrow the neighbor's shop vac or whatever. They do. This isn't that remote. They do have, it is, but they have electricity in this. This is one of the larger towns in this part of Siberia. Now this damper is always fully out while the stove's in operation. And if it went in, of course, the smoke would have nowhere to go. But what this is so critical for in this part of Russia or Siberia is when the firebox is just coals, or it's mostly out, no flame at all, and the coals are going out. You have to know when to do this because it's a carbon monoxide risk. It's very dangerous. When it's almost out, you close off the damper, and then all that heat, again, the fire is not burning at this point. Close it off. All the heat then is stored in the stove, in the 1,000 bricks you get another 2 hours he probably gets of warmth. Where if it stays open, or he burns it and he leaves it open because he goes to bed, well, everything starts to cool down, and then that negative 40 degree Fahrenheit temperature from outside starts to funnel down into the stove, and the entire stove, instead of a thermal mass, becomes a refrigerator and starts to actually make his house colder. So there has to be a way, just at the right timing, to close this off, to keep the cold out, keep the warmth in, at least to get through to the morning where he can light it up again. If he lights it 2, 3, or 4 times a day, the bricks stay warm enough where he maintains the draft. That other damper, he might never have to open that again, even for 8 months. Just has to do it maybe once. As long as the bricks stay warm, the draft will be maintained. There, he's going to slide it all the way in. That's it. All right, let's just say, he's testing, he just built it, but if this was October and it's starting to get cold there, obviously, it could be be 5 degrees Fahrenheit in October. He slides that in. That's it. It might stay in for 6 months because the stove is burned every single day, 2, 3, or 4 times a day. It's never allowed to go cold. It's just that even if they got a day in the 40s, like that never happens. But they probably still would burn it because they know you have to keep everything warm to maintain draft. Although he closed that damper off pretty quickly on a new stove. But again, it's summer there. Maybe he's still testing it out. I doubt he'd be so carefree about it if it was winter. So I'm going to skip ahead here and we'll finish this up. I mean, it's not even, he's not even, there's the brick pile up top. He's not even completely done. He's just, and then, he does plaster it. You can tell when it's pretty much finished when he plasters it. Has he plastered it? Yeah, there's some sort of plaster over top the brickwork, which some sort of I don't know, some sort of plaster of Paris recipe they've been using in Russia. You can see it's over his clean out brick. A lot of the old Russian stoves are whitewashed, plastered over. Just again, one more layer to hold heat. The stove will radiate heat 6, 7, 8, 10 hours after the fire has gone out. There's that same damper. That damper will stay open, will be closed off at night, but again, not too soon. Somebody told me in Germany they don't even, that damper that let me go back. That damper up top, is it coming up? Let me go back again. Where is it? The damper up top must be coming up here. Nope. I'm not going to go back too much. Come on. There it is. Okay. Somebody told me in a comment that in Germany, they don't even allow this, the inspectors, because if you close it off too soon, it's a carbon monoxide risk. So, the big brother, big government knows more than you do. So it's so nice to have the nanny state in the European Union. Well, we have it here in the United States now. It's close to just as bad. Well, nothing's as bad as the European Union. All right, that's probably it. Let's see. I'll just skip ahead pretty quickly. Nope. He does mention that ledge is so he can warm his feet. If he's out hunting and it's negative 40 degrees. I mean, it's not for fun. It's for frostbite, like for survival. If you get your feet wet a little bit, that's what that ledge is for. Bring feeling back in your toes so it doesn't get cut off. There's no joke. No joke. This ain't about living in South Carolina for the winter. Okay, so that's it. It's called The Wall. He says in this video, 80% of those in the village or in the town are doing something similar to this. And if anybody wants to build it, I'll pause it at the right spot. We'll do 5 minutes. Oh, come on. Hey, this guy's not a professional video maker. Let's give him a break. Okay, let me go back actually, get the right spot. Come on. All right. Well, okay, whatever. I'll go back if I need to. Again, all you need to do is, if I was going to build the wall, I would use all fire bricks. It's hard to mix fire bricks at 9 inches with red bricks or pavers at 8 inches. They don't go together. They just don't. And I know, it's fire brick is an extra $1. It's like a little more than $2 per brick. So it gets expensive for a lot of people, but it's so much easier if you can use all fire bricks. So you just make a box. Now, if no smoke is very important to you, firebox should be as high as possible. A high firebox, the flames lap up and eat up the smoke. Depends on, where your neighbors and if you live in a city, things like that. If smoke is not a big, this stove's going to smoke a bit. When it gets really hot, it's probably pretty good, but there's always going to be smoke coming out this guy's chimney. There's just no way around it for a stove like this. But again, in the middle of Siberia, he don't care one bit about smoke. He's about making sure his family can eat. So you just make a box, and you don't need to make it a cooking stove. You just cover the top with bricks. You could lintels across, and make sure that that square or that hole to get into the other part of the stove is of good size. And then you just build a tower up, or you build it all the way down like a wall, whatever you want to do, whatever your needs are. You run it down, and you put that ceiling in, one brick, you run it back, up and out. I mean, it's with fire brick that's stacked together very, very easily. Two down is the same as one over. They basket weave. Two down is the same as one over. This is a piece of cake. And the interior channel of your wall, let me see if I can get a better picture of that. It should be thin. It should be, well, that's not the greatest picture, but it should just be one brick across if you're going to build a little wall yourself. If you make this channel wide, it's going to be hard to heat up. It's narrow channels. Gases move very, very quickly in narrow channels. If this was 2 bricks wide, this stove might not even work. There's so much air that needs to move. So when you build, that second part of the stove here, make it thin. One brick. You could even, if you're using pavers, which are 4x8, or it's possible to use pavers even for the Firebox. They won't last as long. Pavers and brick are fired to almost 2,000 degrees, so they can take the heat. They just don't like rapid hot and cold, heating up quickly, cooling down quickly. That's what cracks red bricks versus fire bricks. But if I was making this out of pavers, I still would do just one brick across, which means the channel is a half a brick. It would be, for a paver, it would just be 4 inches. That's it. It would be pretty tall, but it would be thin. That would be what you would want to do. Don't want to say, I'll make this channel real wide. You won't draft. It won't heat up. No, thin is what you want if you're going to build something like this. And things actually move faster and draft faster. And let's see where that was. Was that it? Yeah, down the end. He just had just one brick opening and the ceiling here, and then he just basically recreated on top of this what he just did here. So it's like 2 bells. I mean, you could call this a double bell stove. It's not really a channel as much of a bell, but it's kind of a hybrid. So I guess that's it, guys. That's a good picture. Thin, absolutely thin. I'll make it real wide, and nope, it won't get hot. Again, why not? The idea is to warm the bricks up and have the hot gases touch all the bricks. Wider doesn't do anything for you. And you wouldn't want to make a double row of bricks or anything like that. You would take. Oh, I should have mentioned that right. These masonry stoves take an hour plus for everything to heat up. You don't ever want to make a masonry stove for like a garage or a work shed, because you want an iron stove for that, because it's an hour and a half before things start to get hot. This is good for if you're going to light it 2 or 3 times a day in your house for 6 months to get through the winter. That's how these stoves are used. They're not. People have made these brick or masonry stoves for their workspace or their little garage tool shed, and they don't realize it takes forever to get hot. But that's the way it's supposed to be. If it takes forever to get hot, it takes forever for the heat to dissipate, and that's the point of these thermal mass holding masonry stoves. Thanks, guys. I'll see you on the next one.